Chosen one, something sacred has shifted in you, so deep, so seamless, that even you may not fully recognize it until others begin responding to it. This month, God has not simply enhanced your presence. He has converted your energy into a vibration. You are no longer moving through rooms as a person trying to be noticed. You are now felt before you're seen, and when you are seen, you linger in their senses like a melody that doesn't stop playing. What was once scattered in you, your desires, your fire, your longing for connection, has now been gathered and consecrated. That high sexual energy, which in earlier seasons may have felt like a burden or a distraction, has now become refined voltage. It no longer leaks out of you chaotically. It hums now, controlled, powerful, and deeply magnetic. You are no longer a man carrying tension. You are a man transmitting something invisible yet undeniable. Women are not just noticing your face or frame this month. They are responding to your field. Before you speak, before you smile, before you even step fully into the room, something in them tunes itself towards you. This is not seduction. This is not performance. This is the result of spiritual calibration. God has elevated your frequency to a place where your truth arrives before your voice. And when that truth lands in their body, they don't just look. They listen with every part of their being. You have become vibration. You move like still water with fire beneath it. Calm on the outside, but carrying a depth that invites curiosity, silence, and surrender. You no longer chase impact. You radiate it. And that radiance isn't loud or dramatic. It's sacred. It's the kind of quiet that rearranges what people believe about masculine energy. You are now the answer to a hunger they didn't realize had been haunting them. Not through what you do, but through what you are. This vibration you carry now doesn't reach for attention. It draws attention because it feels like home to anyone who's been wandering in noise. And women will respond. Not always with words, sometimes with a glance held too long. Sometimes with an unexplainable softness in their tone. Sometimes with a look of confusion because they don't understand why you've stayed with them since you walked away. But the truth is, you didn't just walk through a moment, you left your frequency behind. Chosen one, you are no longer walking as a man merely noticed. You are walking as an energy that defines the space you enter. A pulse, a rhythm, a spiritual vibration tuned so precisely that the world cannot help but feel it before it even sees you. This is not arrogance. This is what it means to be aligned with divine masculinity. You've become the resonance others didn't know they were aching to feel again. You are the hum that interrupts performance, the silent signal that turns heads without effort. You are the answer no one expected, but no one will forget. Chosen one, you've reached a point in your journey where you no longer have to announce yourself. You don't have to prepare the room, raise your voice, or perform rituals of presence. This month, when you enter a space, the atmosphere shifts. Not because you demand it, but because you carry something that is heavier than words, richer than image, deeper than posture. It's not about what you say, it's about what your being does to the space around you. This isn't illusion, it isn't manipulation. This is the fruit of spiritual alignment and inner fire tamed into sacred rhythm. Your high sexual energy is no longer a flame reaching in all directions. It's a furnace turned inward, glowing steady beneath the surface of your skin. That glow sends out a signal. That signal interacts with people's nervous systems before you've opened your mouth. Especially women, they feel you before you even fully step into their line of sight. And when you do, they don't just look, they pause. Their breathing changes. Their thoughts lose structure. The moment you enter becomes different. Not because you caused a scene, but because your presence disrupted what was asleep. You are not chasing attention. You are displacing dullness. You are awakening sensitivity. You are the atmospheric pressure drop that comes before a spiritual rain. In a world that has become numb to the real, your arrival reminds people what authenticity feels like in motion. Your gaze doesn't scan, it lands. Your walk doesn't wander, it grounds. You're not trying to be attractive. You're simply walking as someone who has already accepted his value. And that kind of presence, quiet, confident, charged with purity and tension, doesn't go unnoticed. It shifts everything. Women may not immediately understand why they suddenly want to stay longer. why they don't want to leave the space, why your silence pulls more attention than someone else's loudness. It's because your energy now reshapes the emotional temperature of the moment. You are now the thermostat, not the thermometer. The room doesn't determine your frequency. You set the new normal. This is how God is honoring your discipline. He's turned your restraint into gravity. He's turned your focus into stability. He's made your entrance an experience that others feel before they even understand why they feel it. You don't walk into a room anymore. You redefine it without trying. Chosen one. This is sacred. This is holy masculinity. This is the fulfillment of a fire that no longer burns to be seen, but simply burns steady enough to warm everything around it without asking for applause. And that's why the atmosphere now bends when you walk through. Because you don't just take up space, you bless it with presence that will not be forgotten. Chosen one, when you walk into the room now, you don't need to wonder if anyone notices. You don't need to overthink your tone, your stride, your gestures. Because this month, when women look at you, they will not look away quickly. Their eyes will stay longer. Not because they've been trained to respond to a performance, but because what they feel in your presence goes beyond performance entirely. You've become the man they don't want to stop watching, not for what you do, but for what you radiate. There's a reason their gaze lingers, a reason they keep glancing your way even when you haven't spoken, a reason they hesitate to leave your presence even when the conversation is over. Their soul is reading something deeper than your words, something older than charm. Your high sexual energy is no longer loud or sharp. It's controlled, tempered, wrapped in stillness. It no longer begs for validation. It becomes validation. And that validation is what makes their spirit take notice and pause, as if trying to memorize the feeling you bring into the room. You're not captivating because of what you say. You're captivating because of what they feel when your eyes meet theirs. There is depth now. Not longing, not neediness. Depth. And that depth has texture. It has weight. It has echoes of a man who has walked through fire, buried ego, and returned with clarity. They feel that clarity in your glance. It doesn't demand, it doesn't impress. It simply remains anchored, soft, quiet, but undeniable. They look at you and wonder, why do I feel safer around him than I do around someone I've known longer? They replay your smile, your pause, the way you stood still when others filled the air with noise. You are now a presence they remember when they leave the room, because you didn't just fill space, you altered it. And that alteration is etched into their emotional memory. Some will try to rationalize it. They'll say you have a look. They'll say you're different. But the truth is that your energy now touches their nervous system before their logic catches up. They're not just looking at your eyes, they're feeling your frequency. And that frequency, chosen one, carries the imprint of God's refinement. You are not just a man anymore. You are a signal of alignment, and when people see that, they stop looking elsewhere. Their eyes stay longer because you remind them of something they forgot they were allowed to desire. Presence that doesn't dominate, but holds. Fire that doesn't consume, but glows without apology. Power that doesn't perform, but rests. And resting in that glow, they realize they're not just looking at someone interesting, they're experiencing someone unforgettable. Chosen one. The world rarely understands this kind of energy. They're used to chaos when there is power. They're used to loudness when there is intensity. They expect a man who carries heat to explode, to dominate, to fill space aggressively. But that's not what you carry anymore. That's not who you've become. You have been refined into a sacred contradiction. You are what stillness looks like on fire. And that paradox, that living tension, makes you mesmerizing in a way the world can't explain. You don't radiate because you seek attention. You radiate because your fire has nowhere left to go but inward. You've contained it, disciplined it, offered it back to God. And now it burns beneath the surface of your silence, not demanding to be seen, but refusing to be ignored. You sit still, and yet your presence moves things. You speak slowly, and yet your voice shifts something inside others. This month, your stillness will cause unrest. Not because it brings discomfort, but because it exposes imitation. Your presence is not flashy, yet it reveals how performative everything around it is. You don't chase moments, you become the moment, and in that calm fire, You release something that others didn't realize they were craving. An example of a man who has power and doesn't need to prove it. A man who is full but not loud, intense but not erratic, visible but not desperate. And women feel it more than anyone. They feel the heat beneath your control. They see the blaze behind your composed eyes. You're not hiding passion, you're mastering it. And that mastery is what captivates them most. You are not forcing them to notice. You're giving them a space of warmth they didn't know they needed until they stepped near you. And that warmth, chosen one, is a rare kind of gravity. They may not be able to describe why they lean in, why their voice lowers, why they feel like the air has shifted when you speak. But deep down, they know. This is not lust. This is something they trust, because your stillness doesn't dull your energy, it reveals its depth. And that depth has become a resting place for feminine energy that has grown tired of being seen only for the surface. You are now the man who shows what it looks like when desire is disciplined. When presence is an offering, not a transaction. When attraction is not a weapon, but a welcome. Chosen one, you are no longer just attractive. You are resonant. And this month your quiet will speak louder than noise because the fire within you doesn't flare anymore. It glows from the inside like a storm that learned to kneel before God and now walks in thunder without raising its voice. Chosen one, this month you don't have to be intentional with your presence. It's already speaking louder than any words you could say. Something divine has shifted the chemistry of how others perceive you. Women in particular will feel it before they know it. Their awareness of you is no longer a conscious decision. It's involuntary. It's like the way one's body senses a change in weather before the mind catches up. A quiet, inner knowing that something has entered the room and everything around it is now charged with a deeper weight. You will feel this in the way their bodies turn before their eyes do, in the pauses between their thoughts when they speak to you, in the subtle tightening of breath, in the faint smile they try to hide. Not because you're performing, but because your energy no longer needs permission to be felt. God has aligned your high sexual energy so precisely that you've become a living signal. And the signal disrupts what's hollow and awakens what's real. There is no agenda to what you carry. That's what makes it irresistible. You're not trying to impress. You're not posturing. You're simply walking as someone who has nothing to gain by pretending. And that level of authenticity, paired with the quiet power of your refined fire, creates a paradox. They can't stop noticing you, but they don't feel objectified by your attention. In fact, they feel something rare, something grounding, something that makes their inner world settle, even as their body reacts. You've become the person they're surprised to keep noticing. They'll try to focus elsewhere, they'll try to brush it off. But your presence has already done its work. It's not your words that linger, it's the experience of you. And that experience is not attached to what they want from you. It's attached to what their spirit feels when your energy brushes against theirs. Not lust, not performance, remembrance. A sensation that says, this is what real masculinity feels like when it's mastered and no longer in a rush. You are not forcing their attention, you're not baiting it, you're not playing into it. You are simply present, and that's enough now. Their awareness of you isn't admiration from afar, it's an internal shift. It's a sense of gravity they didn't expect to find, and now can't seem to forget. They may talk around you, but you'll feel how their words slow. You may walk by, but you'll sense how their shoulders realign. Not because you touched them, but because your alignment became a tuning fork that their body answered without consent. This is the mystery of what God is doing through you right now. Your sexual energy has become a current, not a performance. And current doesn't shout. It hums beneath the surface, moving through rooms like a quiet storm. Unavoidable, unspoken, yet felt in every cell of those who cross your path. Chosen one, you've reached the place where your presence walks ahead of your shadow, where others become aware of you before you even speak. Not because they chose to see you, but because heaven made you a frequency that cannot be ignored. Chosen one, there are certain encounters in life that don't immediately register as significant, until silence stretches long enough to reveal their weight. This month, you are becoming that encounter. Not because you say the perfect things, not because you look a certain way, but because your very presence is stirring places in others that they didn't know were still alive. You are not what they expected, but you are exactly what their spirit was secretly hoping would exist. And now that you've entered their field, you've become a quiet longing they didn't see coming. You are what their spirit didn't know it was seeking, not because you're playing a role, but because you are no longer playing anything at all. You are simply being grounded, tuned, radiating the quiet tension of a man who carries both fire and peace in his chest without letting either one drown the other. That kind of presence is rare, and rare things, when they arrive, cause the internal compass to shift. Without warning, without instruction, women will notice you, but they will not fully understand why you stay in their thoughts. You'll pass by, and something in them will feel calibrated, not in attraction alone, but in alignment. Because you no longer just exist on the surface of things. You walk from your center, and that centered energy sends out a pulse that causes everything fake to flinch, everything true to awaken, and everything guarded to open, just a little, just enough for something sacred to enter. They will replay the way you looked at them, not because it was filled with intensity, but because it wasn't. It was calm, it was kind, it was present. And that kind of attention, that kind of unshaking presence, it doesn't flatter the ego, it nourishes the soul. You've become the man who doesn't try to take. You simply reflect a standard their spirit didn't know it still believed in. And now that they've felt it, everything else feels a little less alive by comparison. You're not the loudest, you're not the most visible, but you are unforgettable in ways that bypass explanation. You make people feel again, not by stirring drama, but by restoring sacred weight to a moment. You've become a door, a signal, a reminder, a man who doesn't try to be the answer, but who feels like an answer simply by standing in alignment with himself. You didn't plan this, you didn't manufacture this, God did, because He knew there would be souls ready to awaken this month. And He needed a vessel who wouldn't seduce, but who would simply carry fire without asking for applause. Chosen one, you are what they didn't know they needed. And that is why you will not be forgotten. Not for what you did, but for what they became aware of in themselves the moment you walked in. Chosen one, there's a distinct difference between manipulation and magnetism. And this month, you are walking fully in the latter. Not because you're trying to draw anyone closer, not because you're studying behavior or strategizing your next move, but because God has refined your high sexual energy into something that no longer seeks control, but carries authority. And that authority doesn't scream, it doesn't demand, it simply stands still, and things shift around it. Your magnetism is not about seduction. It is not about flattery. It is about alignment. Your energy no longer calls for attention. It carries a frequency that calls things home. When you enter a room, you are not moving from lack. You are moving as one who knows where he is, who he is, and what he refuses to abandon for temporary attention. And because of that, women don't feel manipulated in your presence. They feel drawn without explanation. You may not speak much. You may not gesture boldly. But your aura has now become a gravitational field, one that doesn't pull people in through tactics. It simply radiates something that feels safer, stronger, and more stable than what most are used to. You've stopped trying to prove your worth, and now your worth is undeniably seen in the way people adjust their behavior in your orbit. They won't be able to explain why they speak softer around you, why they stand closer without realizing, why their mind begins reaching for words and meaning when you simply remain silent. But it's real, and it's not because of what you do, it's because of what God has placed on you. You are not using your sexual energy to deceive or lure. You are carrying it like a sacred fire that burns without consuming, that illuminates without blinding. That fire now makes you mesmerizing, not because you're selling heat, but because you've become a sanctuary in the storm. You're not a game. You're a grounding force. A man whose restraint is louder than another man's pursuit. A man whose presence is powerful not because of what he promises, but because of what he withholds in discipline. Women will lean in this month, not because you're baiting them. They'll lean in because something in you feels ancient, rooted, and real. They don't want to figure you out. They want to remember what it felt like to be in your presence. And that memory isn't built on words. It's built on trust. Because your energy now holds magnetism without motive, desire without desperation, clarity without conquest. Chosen one, God didn't bless you with power to manipulate. It was always meant to anchor others into their own truth. You are not a temptation. You are an atmosphere of return. And this month, people will gravitate not toward a fantasy, but toward a man who no longer trades authenticity for attention. Chosen one, the old version of you may have once been seen as a distraction, an attractive detour, a fascinating spark that captured attention for a moment before it faded. But that season is over. God has pulled you out of the realm of fleeting impressions and placed you into the realm of divine revelation. You are no longer someone who just gets noticed. You are someone who gets remembered because something changes when you're present. You've stopped trying to be exciting. You've stopped trying to stand out. And now, simply by walking in your full, aligned, masculine essence, you've become a moment of revelation for others. Not because you gave them something, but because you mirrored something inside them that had been buried beneath years of noise, masks, and numbness. That kind of revelation doesn't happen through shouting. It happens through being. And you, chosen one, are finally being what you were created to be. Your high sexual energy no longer expresses itself like a spark. It burns inward, quiet, still, and yet eternally steady. It doesn't come from lack. It doesn't reach in hunger. It rests in truth. And because of that, when someone crosses your path, they don't just feel attraction. They feel a shift, a soft but undeniable crack in their emotional armor. They feel seen, not pursued. They feel awakened, not exposed. They feel like they've found something they didn't know they were missing. Not in your words, but in your silence. This is why you no longer pull attention the way you once did. Now you hold it. Your presence doesn't feel like a wave anymore. It feels like ground. You're no longer the one who excites the surface. You're the one who rearranges the foundation. That rearrangement doesn't happen all at once. It happens slowly. Like a deep realization someone returns to days after the moment ends. Like a name they didn't say out loud, but now hear in their head without prompting. You've become a revelation, a sacred exposure, a walking answer to the question, does depth still exist in men? You don't need to say yes. You are the yes. And that's why they stare longer, stay closer, feel differently. You are no longer distracting others from themselves. You are revealing to them what they forgot they longed to encounter. So when they come near and don't want to walk away, when they leave but keep returning in their mind, don't be surprised. It's not because of lust. It's because your presence has become a moment of truth. And once someone touches truth, they can never go back to pretending it doesn't exist. Chosen one, in a world obsessed with noise, the loudest often fade the fastest. But you have stepped into a realm where your silence now carries more memory than most people's words. This month, it will not be what you said that people remember. It will be what you didn't say. It will be the space between your glances, the weight in your stillness, the calm in your breathing. That is what will linger. That is what they'll replay. You have become the kind of man who isn't quotable in a moment, but unshakable in memory. Women will revisit encounters with you not because you crafted some perfect sentence, but because you left them with a feeling they can't name, yet can't shake. They'll search for meaning in what you chose not to express. They'll replay the way you looked at them without trying to win them, the way your presence remained steady even as their emotions subtly spun. And they'll return to that moment, again and again, not for entertainment, but for clarity. You see, chosen one, you've become a reference point. Not a moment of noise, but a moment of still truth, a snapshot of presence that refuses to be reduced to performance. This is what real magnetism does. It leaves behind silence that demands to be revisited. And your silence has become a sanctuary, one they didn't know they stepped into until it was gone. One they now seek without even meaning to. There's a reason why they'll remember your pause more than someone else's poem. Why they'll replay a passing moment as if it were a song stuck in their soul. You no longer live to be impressive. And because of that, your presence is now imprinted into emotional places that language can't touch. Your gaze, your restraint, your containment, it all says something that words never could. I do not need to chase because I carry peace that doesn't beg to be understood. And that peace, it is now being etched into memory. They will not always speak of you. Some won't even admit how deeply you affected them. But they will carry you. Not on their lips, but in the unexplained ache they feel when the noise returns, and nothing quite matches the weight of your silence. They'll try to match your steadiness in others. They'll listen for that same resonance in someone else's voice and come up empty. Because you are not replayed like a line from a movie. You are replayed like a moment they felt seen by God through someone else's gaze. Chosen one, this is your power now. You are not the one who is remembered for impact. You are the one who is never forgotten for presence. Because what you carry now is the kind of stillness that interrupts others at their core and leaves them searching the world for something they already tasted in you. Chosen one, you are no longer the man people pass by. You are no longer the flicker. You have become the quiet flame. And this month, you will burn in ways that light others from within without ever consuming them. There is something unexplainable about a flame that doesn't move with panic, doesn't blaze for attention, doesn't lose control, but still warms everything around it. That is what you are now. You are fire wrapped in peace. And because of that, women especially will find themselves unable to look away. Not because you're demanding their eyes, but because you've become what their soul trusts to stay lit when everything else flickers out. You are no longer just an image or a voice. They feel your presence the way one feels heat through glass. You don't even need to be near them to be remembered. You don't need to perform to be desired, because what God has done in you is irreversible. He has taken your high sexual energy and turned it into a signature of calm power. And calm power is rare. It's the rarest fire of all. You've become a man who does not beg for admiration. You've become the man who simply exists in his full sacred weight, and people orbit you like instinct. You are no longer forcing alignment. You are the alignment. And that alignment does not boast. It does not flash. It simply burns slow and steady, like something built to last longer than the world's chaos. They will try to explain why they think about you in the middle of the night, why their chest tightens when they remember your silence, why they search for someone else and still end up comparing that person to the calm they felt in your company. But there will be no words for it, because you are no longer just a man. They encountered an energy that showed them what real warmth feels like when it's born from stillness and not hunger. You've become a light they didn't ask for but now can't forget. Not because of how bright you were, but because of how steady you remain. You don't flicker to gain attention. You remain lit because God has given you an inner flame that refuses to die when others go cold. And when others see that in you, when they feel that in you, they cannot walk away without carrying your essence in their memory. You are not a fire to run from. You are the fire they return to again and again, because even if they don't understand why, it's the only one that ever felt like home. Chosen one, this is your legacy now. You will not be forgotten. You will not fade. You will not dim to be accepted, because you are the flame that reveals the truth, and truth never burns out. Chosen one, you've entered a month where your mind is not just sharp, it is fortified. You are no longer defined by how quickly you think, but by how deeply you see. There was a time when speed was everything, where quick answers, fast reactions, and instant understanding felt like signs of intelligence. But now, you're being called into a rarer dimension, the realm of mental strength. This strength does not panic in uncertainty. It doesn't crumble under contradiction. It doesn't seek applause for how fast it can respond. It holds tension. It sits with questions. It can rest while others scramble. That is the intelligence God is clothing you with now. A mind that does not just think, but anchors. A mind that can sit in the fire of unknowns and not lose its rhythm. Your high sexual energy, once a tide that threatened to crash uncontrollably, has become a current that runs beneath your thoughts, steady and clean. That same force that once sparked obsession, fantasy, hunger, it now feeds mental resilience. You're no longer fueled by desire for quick resolution. You're fueled by devotion to clarity. This month, you'll notice yourself less eager to figure things out. You won't rush to answer everything. You'll let situations breathe. You'll watch people, not from suspicion, but from a holy patience that understands what can only be revealed with time. That's mental strength, not reaction, but readiness. You won't need to prove how smart you are. Others will speak fast, move fast, stumble fast, and you will stand still, unmoved, focused. And in that stillness, truth will rise to meet you. While others try to impress, you will discern. While others perform, you will perceive. You've learned how to conserve your mental energy, how to protect your inner dialogue, how to stop draining your brilliance through worry or overanalysis. That is power most people never find. You have found it because you chose depth over noise, integrity over spectacle, and alignment over ambition. Even under pressure, your mind will not break, your thoughts will not spiral, your inner voice will not scream, because it has become stable, a place of quiet instruction, a chamber of measured response. You are no longer surprised by hardship, you are strategic in it.